Today, we need to continue talking about something we talked about yesterday, and that is the loaded month of June for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Because after the video came out yesterday, we now know of two more five-star prospects that look to be making their way to Tuscaloosa. And also, news comes out about where Ronald Williams will be transferring, and we have got to break it all down. But before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from y'all. Hop down to the comments. Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Given how insanely loaded the month of June is for Alabama visits, do you believe that the Crimson Tide are poised to add in another five-star? And let me know what you're thinking there. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification because I do constant college football content and you don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoy that content, be sure to like and comment down below because those interactions are huge for content creators such as myself. But with all that being said, let's talk about these two game-changing five stars that look to be making their way to Titletown. And we'll start on the offensive side of the ball, where the #1 quarterback in the class of 2023, Arch Manning, looks to make his way to Tuscaloosa June 18th. Now, June 18th is an interesting date because not only will Arch Manning now be on campus, but top Tide target from the class of 2022, Anai White, will also be on campus. Because of that, we have got to circle that date in our calendars. Remember in yesterday's video, I talked about June 25th being a date that we needed to circle, and that's still absolutely true, and we're going to get to that, but June 18th is another day that we have got to circle. Now, if we're talking about Arch specifically, this is a really, really fun process that is going to be going through, and something that we're going to be covering very closely, because the eyes of the recruiting world will be on this kid. Not only is he insanely talented, absolutely worthy of the #1 quarterback ranking in next year's class, and that's not an easy ranking to hold on to when you look at how talented the quarterbacks coming out next year are. He, Malachi Nelson, a kid we're going to be talking about later today. But for Arch Manning, where does Alabama stand in this process? And that's very hard to tell. The simple answer is that Alabama has been mentioned along with 5 other schools consistently as having phenomenal contact with the family and the family being very comfortable with them. In that sense, I think you have to feel very good, but we also need to understand that they are still very young in this process. They want to go through, take visits because Arch doesn't really know what he likes, what he doesn't like, and what he's looking for yet. And so because of that, they are going to be looking to take visits, figure out what it is they are looking for, but that's why you have to feel good if you're Alabama getting him on campus this early. An interesting tidbit, though I don't think it's very impactful, but something to watch. He's created a great relationship with Texas running back, #2 running back in the class of 2023, Ruben Owens, who's currently committed to the Longhorns. Owens recently picked up an offer from the University of Alabama and was ecstatic about it on Twitter, very excited, and the Crimson Tide are really pinning down on Owens as the guy they want next year to go along with Richard Young to really solidify a special year. And Owens is open to the pitch. I'm not saying he's going to be flipping, but at the same time, it is one thing that we have to watch. The interesting thing is those two have a great relationship, but they will not be visiting on the same day. So just purely an interesting tidbit. On the defensive side of the ball, it still isn't short of intrigue because 5-star defensive end Omari Abor has confirmed he will be coming to Tuscaloosa June 25th, adding in to an insanely loaded day that is already featuring names such as Walter Nolan and Denver Harris. Adding in Abor is absolutely huge. Abor comes from Duncanville, and for you Tide fans in the know, Duncanville is where inside linebacker Kendrick Blackshire comes from. Blackshire went viral multiple times last year on Twitter because he's not built like a typical 18-year-old, and if you want to see another guy, Google Abor and see if he's built like your typical 18-year-old. These dudes are special. Abor's out there sunning suns, and there's a reason why he's shooting up recruiting boards, and every college in the nation wants him. Now, Abor has been thought to be an OU lean, not an OU lock, but he grew up with some familiarity of Oklahoma. But it is important to note that he is very open. He is trying to make a business decision, and he wants to go where he feels the most comfortable. And if you listen to what he said about Alabama, you have got to feel good about the Crimson Tide's chances. Listening to what he said about Alabama, he said Jay Valai is someone who's been in contact with him. Valai, coming from Texas last year, has really taken over recruiting that North Texas area, which I'm currently at, so I'm not surprised there. However, look for Freddie Roach to become more involved in this. I think one interesting thing he said was pointing that Nick Saban Saban has been much more hands-on in this process than even he thought he would be. For an Alabama fan, that makes me very excited to hear because I think Abor is a game-changing prospect, and you know what Alabama does to defensive players of his caliber, right? Just look at Will Anderson. However, getting a guy like Freddie Roach involved, getting a guy like Nick Saban involved is only going to make this pitch even sweeter, and what a pitch it could be. Pointing out the Crimson Tide legacy, right? Pointing out the insane draft production or the 39 first-rounders in the Saban era alone, that's a really, really good pitch. I think that the one thing that I want to point to that he said that is very exciting is he pointed to one of the things he's looking for at the next level is somewhere where it's a family environment, somewhere where he feels like he's a part of the team, a part of the family, where everybody's there to better each other, where everybody's there for each other, and he identified that as maybe his favorite factor about Alabama, and he kept saying, we feel like a family, and it's something we feel very comfortable with, we being the team. So he already has some good interaction with the Alabama Crimson Tide team. However, once again, this is another situation where I think Alabama is in a good position, but there's a long way to go. Even though he's visiting June 25th, he doesn't plan on committing until the All-American game. So there's a long way between then and now, something we have to watch, but Alabama looks to absolutely solidify their place in his mind and where they stand. They're going to be one of a few universities, I should say, before I get tongue-tied, my goodness, that we have got to keep an eye on. Lastly, before we close this out, Ronald Williams has announced that he will be transferring to Michigan State. This is great for Michigan State. They need all the help they can get, and I think Williams is going to be able to go in there and really show how talented he is. Williams is a guy that has the ability, but this spring, I think the emergence of someone like Marcus Banks, who had a really, really productive spring, had some interceptions logged, and then Kool-Aid McKinstry just absolutely proving he was worthy of the #1 cornerback spot in the nation. That's tough, especially when you mix in last year the emergence of Malachi Moore and Brian Branch to the degree of which they did. Jalen Armour-Davis comes back from injury, and he's looking like the Jalen Armour-Davis that the staff has been talking about for years. That right there created the perfect storm, to which I don't blame Williams for transferring. I wish him all the best, and I think Michigan State is a place where he's going to be able to showcase just how talented he is. It was just incredibly unfortunate timing at Alabama. The perfect storm really happened. You have two guys that were playing at an All-American ability level in Malachi Moore and Brian Branch, and I truly do believe that. Then you have Jalen Armour-Davis coming back, JaQuincy McKinstry. It just didn't work out at the best timing, but somebody who we are absolutely going to be rooting for moving forward. But I'm very interested to see what y'all think. What do you think about this June for the Alabama Crimson Tide? What do you think about Arch Manning coming? And then what do you think about Omari Abor, another Duncanville guy who looks to be a high-value target for the Alabama Crimson Tide? Do you think that the Crimson Tide exit the month of June with another 5-star, a part of this class? Let me know. That's it. See ya.